my 4 books are all about local wildlife, and I wrote the very first one and all the subsequent others to educate people about the wonderful biodiversity that we have here in Singapore. So we are in a rainforest climate, right? So we have just as much species diversity as the Amazon rainforest. Can you believe it? I read somewhere that on Bukit Timah Hill alone, we have the highest spider diversity in the world, the most number of different species in one place. Even I think the largest mammal that we have in Singapore is the wild boar, or maybe the samba deer. Both can potentially be dangerous. Like they can charge at you, and they are bigger, and they can cause you some harm. Please, do not scream, do not panic, do not kill the animal, because children are watching us all the time.
My daughter was like 2.5 or 3 years old when we took her there. We were not expecting her to actually understand, the animals out there. But her delight was totally unexpected. Welcome to Everyday Parenting, a down-to-earth podcast presented by Bricks and Blocks Coaching. Tune in as we dive into the real-life experiences of parents. Today, we are joined by Maureen, an interesting parent who's an author and who encourages her children to learn about wildlife in Singapore. So let's see what Maureen has to share with us today. Hi, Maureen.
Hello, hi.
Would you like to introduce yourselves to the audience before we start?
Oh yes, so I'm Maureen Yo. I've written 4 children's books featuring Singapore's wildlife, and I'm also writing part-time for the Mandai Wildlife Group, mostly doing information panels for describing the animals and the plants and the sustainability measures that Mandai is using for the upcoming attractions. And I'm a mom to a 5-year-old and 3-year-old, both girls.
What led to your interest into wildlife?
It's just something that I've always been interested in ever since I was a kid. Yeah.
Okay, so this is one thing which fascinates me, right? Children love wildlife. They love going to the zoos. The storybooks, if you see, if they have animal characters, they get fascinated by it. What's this attraction for children with animals?
I think it's something quite innate, actually. I'm a Christian. So, I wasn't always a Christian. I think for a long time, I was an atheist, but I still had this keen interest in animals. I just thought that they were so fascinating, and I love finding out all kinds of interesting facts about them and how they work within the ecosystem. But then after becoming Christian and reading the Bible, actually, that really provided me with quite a good explanation for what is this innate love that many of us have for animals. To go back to your question about why is it that children love animals, and I feel like, when I plan holidays for my children now, they're too young to be appreciating like historical significance of places or even cultural significance of places, but they instantly understand if you bring them to a wildlife attraction, right? If you bring them to a national park, or you bring them to a zoo, that's something that they can connect with very instinctively, because there's beauty, and it shows them how the world works. I think as children are exposed to these things, they actually gain a very deep understanding of how the world is working. And I don't know if I've been articulate enough about that, but there is a sense of like the spiritual about communing with nature. There is a sense of, you do feel like you're part of something bigger than yourself. And children tend to be quite egocentric. I do think that communing with nature and observing animals is one of the ways that they learn perspective taking and empathy, and that they are not the center of the universe, but they're part of something bigger, and that is a good thing. That's a beautiful thing.
Wow, that's an interesting answer. So you got in the spiritual aspect, you even got the psychological aspect, and just the curiosity of the children to know about animals, right?
I think that is also why animals feature a lot in folk tales, in fables. You could have human characters throughout, right? But I think writers are quite they some of them might be doing it deliberately, but some of them may just be, doing it from quite a natural and instinctive place to make their animals, to make their characters as animals. Because, I think all of us, we ascribe certain characteristics to animals. And so when we see a simple fable like the tortoise and the hare, or we see the stereotype of a sly fox, brave lion, we are ascribing human qualities to them, but we are also recognizing some kind of superhuman or extra-human or non-human qualities about them as animals, and it's something that we can admire or aspire to, but definitely there is the sense that we are part of something bigger than ourselves. A lot of other religions have animalistic gods, or there's something very primal and powerful in this connection that we have to animals.
Yeah, actually, now that you mention it, Hinduism also has, most gods will have an animal as a vehicle. Stories have a lot more of integration to animals, kindness to animals, learning from animals. So very interesting to bring in the spiritual aspect. I was totally not expecting this coming from you.
Yeah, but I do think that kind of explains the innate fascination that children have for animals.
Yeah. So how did you start this connection with wildlife with your children?
Oh, so for my kids, I actually I didn't want to kind of force it onto them, because it's something that I am very, very passionate about and I love, and I definitely didn't want to be like, I make you like what I like. I drag you to the zoo even though you don't want to go to the zoo. But thankfully, they seem to, as you say, have quite a natural attraction for animals. I think for someone who loves animals, it's a very natural thing. Like, if you love X, you will want to share X with your kids. Not force it on them, but you will share it with them. And then if they develop an interest in it too, then you're like, oh great, and then you can share. But if you yourself don't really have that affinity for nature, but it's something that you would like to develop for your kids, then I'd say it begins with you. So what I would really try and say to parents is to take a step back, and usually when we encounter animals, of course sometimes we go out to a park and then we hope that we are going to encounter an animal, but very often it's like, a lizard has appeared in the house, or a snake has appeared in the house. So what I would really urge parents to do is to be calm and to remember that most animals are not out to harm you. Even mosquitoes, they have things that they need to do to survive. If you encounter a lizard or a snake, it's probably minding its own business. It's not there to try and kill you, and anything that it does will be done out of self-defense. So if you take a calm approach, treat the animal with respect, please, do not scream, do not panic, do not kill the animal, because children are watching us all the time. And of course, they take their cues from us. And rightly so, right? They learn what are threats. They learn what to be careful of from us. So if we can show by our personal example that animals are to be respected, that we can educate ourselves about animals, we can learn about them, and therefore understand how to keep ourselves safe, understand what aspects of them are beautiful, what aspects of them we can appreciate. But yeah, a lot of this fear of animals is conditioned by children watching their parents and learning from the parents' body language and cues that, this is something to be worried about, something to be fearful about. So yes, start with yourself, and then it will. It's one of those things that is sometimes caught and not taught, right? Your children will pick it up from you.
Yeah. Hey, that example brings me to this question. Okay, so my children love the dogs in the apartment, and sometimes the dogs can bark, or they're quite wild, right? And then you automatically are fearful of protecting your child. Or in this case of the snakes, fair enough, they would have given advance warning that they are, tamed and they're not harmful for the children and stuff. But out in the wild, a monitor lizard comes, or there's a snake which passes by your way, then the natural instinct of a parent is to protect the child from danger. These two are conflicting interests, right? So how do I protect my child while still creating an interest in wildlife?
Yeah, so I think the concept of a drill, like a practice, is important. So if you have this intention that you want to share wildlife with your kids, then you have to be prepared, right? Be prepared for a time where suddenly an animal pops out. Then how are you going to react? The number one is always calm. Just be calm. And number two is keep a respectful distance, right? Most of the time, the animal is more afraid of you than you are of it. Okay, so yeah, I think at the first moment, just stop, be calm, and then even I think the largest mammal that we have in Singapore is the wild boar, or maybe the samba deer. Both can potentially be dangerous. Like they can charge at you, and they are bigger, and they can cause you some harm. But again, if you keep a respectful distance, you don't advance, and you are quiet, and you don't show yourself to be a threat, usually they will move away from you. After that interaction is over, then you go away and you find out more about it. Now we have wonderful tools like Google Lens. You can take a photo of the animal, and then you can find out later on what is it called, what are its habits. This is very useful if you see a snake, right? You can take a photo, then later on you can find out, is it poisonous, is it not poisonous? Don't react suddenly. Just try and keep calm and calm and quiet, and a respectful distance, and then the learning can take place after that.
Wow. Okay. It will take some time for at least me to adapt. If it's a danger, my instinctive reaction is to protect the child. So of course there is observation and stuff, so you bring the child back and maybe there's observation, but the instinct is to walk away from that situation. So
I said that most animals will actually avoid us, and there are some exceptions, right? Like just now you mentioned dogs. Okay, so dogs, even pet dogs, can sometimes be aggressive, and then macaques, right? With a lot of the nature reserves in Singapore, we have these wild monkeys that can be very aggressive, and so it's good to actually prepare your child what to do in that situation. Again, a drill is good. You can talk to your kids about this in advance, or even in that situation when it's happening, after you say, hey, let's stay calm, let's keep a respectful distance. If the animal seems to still be behaving in an aggressive manner, then you have some steps that you can do.
Wow. So have you and your children encountered such scenarios, wildlife in unexpected situations?
Oh yes, definitely. I'm quite proud of how they behaved in our recent holiday. We were in Bali, and we were actually in like a Gojek on the way to the airport to come back to Singapore already, but we're still in Bali, right? Then the driver suddenly said, emergency, and he pulled off to the side of the road, and it was a bit of a flurry. But then my husband said something about a snake, so the driver spoke limited English, but I think so he was trying to communicate to us that there's a snake in the car. And so we said to our kids, okay, pull up your legs. We all have to get out of the car very quickly. Okay, and we unstrapped their seatbelts and everything, and they all listened and they got out. So there was no screaming, there was no panic. Everything was very calm and quick. I was very proud of them for that. So we stood at the side of the road while this driver tried to catch the snake that was inside the car. And he was hitting the seats and everything. And the children were very curious. They were very curious. They wanted to come closer and look. They were not scared. We had to hold them back. And then eventually the driver managed to grab the snake and throw it out. And then the kids were looking to see what kind of snake this was. And I managed to snap a photo of it. And then again, I used the Google function. Later on, we found out it was an oriental rat snake. Yeah, I was really happy with my kids that they had that calmness. It was all good. Yeah.
How often do you go to the zoo?
Oh man, we had the membership, so I think the membership is really worth it for all the wildlife parks. You can go as many times as you like within a year. So yeah, when we had the membership, we were there like all the time. Yeah.
So for us, it's like once in 2 weeks we have to go to one of the wildlife parks, and even
so you have the membership too?
Yeah. Of course. I mean, it's every penny worth. So,
yes. I mean, it's not cheap, but if you go a lot, then it makes it quite worth it.
It's worth every penny, and it's a very engaging time with the children. Their fascination and the delight. My daughter was like 2.5 or 3 years old when we took her there. we were not expecting her to actually understand, the animals out there. But her delight was totally unexpected. It was one of those memories which just stays with you, right? The first time she saw those, we went to the river safari, and the way she reacted to those tortoises and the crocodile was like, wow, a 3-year-old can actually understand what's happening. And that's one of those capturing memories moment, right? So I love. Even in our holidays, we usually have a zoo included. Every place we go to will have a zoo, and it's very different. The way the pandas react in Singapore Zoo versus the way the pandas react in Darwin Zoo or versus Gold Coast Zoo is very different. And you're like, oh, pandas actually move? The ones here actually sleep a lot. So,
yeah. Animals have personalities too, So, and then how they are cared for, the routines that they have, it affects how they are presented. So, yeah.
Yeah. So, any final thoughts to parents who want to engage their children in wildlife interactions, not just the zoos, but in everyday life? How would you go about it?
Everyday life. Okay, first, books. Yes. So I emphasize the importance of, you get your children prepared even before they encounter whatever it is. You get them prepared, right? So read lots of stories, read lots of factual books as well about animals. And especially for Singapore, actually, okay, so my 4 books are all about local wildlife, and I wrote the very first one and all the subsequent others to educate people about the wonderful biodiversity that we have here in Singapore. So we are in a rainforest climate, right? So we have just as much species diversity as the Amazon rainforest. Can you believe it? I read somewhere that on Bukit Timah Hill alone, we have the highest spider diversity in the world, the most number of different species in one place. So read lots of books to educate yourself on what is actually out there. Read my books, please. And then once you're there, when you're out and about in the parks, then you can keep your eyes and ears peeled, right? Usually, to survive, many animals are masters of camouflage. So you really have to, look and listen quite carefully to see them. And then, of course, if you already know what kinds of animals are out there, then you have a better idea of what you're actually looking for. And then the time of day also matters. I think a lot of parents, for me anyway, my kids have to go to bed. I can't bring them out on night walks, but actually a lot of animals are nocturnal. Okay, but if you have very young kids and they need to go to bed, then a good time to bring them out to see animals be early in the morning or in the evening when it's cooler. The animals are just like us. When it's hot, they are hiding. When it's cooler, you have better chances to see them, especially birds. Singapore has an amazing array of birds, and you may not be able to see them, but you can hear them, especially at dawn and in the evening. Yeah, and I think be very open to looking closely at things. You can bring out binoculars, you can bring out magnifying glass, because you can find really the most amazing details even in snails, in insects. It's great, yeah. Open your kids' eyes to all these possibilities, and don't be afraid to get dirty, of course. Yeah, don't be afraid to turn leaves over, to touch trees,
Yeah, thank you so much. This was a very interesting conversation. Before we end, I would definitely place the books you have written in the links below, but would you like to speak about your books?
Oh yeah, sure. So the very first one that I wrote is called The Great Singapore Poo Sale and Other Beastly Business, and it was written because I was a teacher at that time, and I had to guide some students in some project work, and they said they wanted to do a project on Save the Tigers because they love animals so much. So I said, okay, but tigers went extinct in Singapore quite a long time ago, and why don't you do a project on conservation of local animals? And they looked at me like completely straight faces, but man, there are no animals in Singapore. And I was like, what? And then I thought, yeah, they have all these fairy tales and fables with so many different animals, and most of the after writing these books, I go out and do school talks, and I realized that most kids will know more about the animals you can find in the African savannah than you can find in Singapore. Right, so I set out to write a story that that would appeal to children, that would be funny, but that also weaves in the facts about animals. And that was the first one, and subsequently all 4 of my books are like that. They all have facts about the animals, but they have a storyline that's hopefully engaging, that shares some values. The most recent 2, the Classroom Critters series, they are comic books, so even very young kids can look at the pictures and understand the story. But also I purposely put in things from the MOE science syllabus, so you can use these books as a study tool as well. Yeah.
Wow, that's an interesting profession you have chosen. Yeah, I'm also envious of the flexi work policy that you have. You get time to spend with your children as well. So
yeah, I'm very blessed. Yeah.
Thanks, Maureen. It's been wonderful conversation. I hope our viewers also enjoy this conversation. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
So before we wrap up, we'd love to hear your stories. So reach out to us at bricksandblockscoaching.com. Thank you for tuning in today. I'm Shweta, and this is Everyday Parenting. See you next time.